Hey friends, Joey Resendez here. Here's the tutorial video for Etude number 3 from the 2022 TMEA Saxophone Etudes. This is fairing number 16. B minor is the key. Same key signature as D major. It's the same notes, but instead of starting on D, you're going to start on B. So. That's a natural minor scale that I just played for you, also called an Aeolian scale. But what you'll find a lot in when you're playing in minor keys is the seventh note of that scale is oftentimes raised to create that T-Do motion. And in this case, the seventh note of that scale is A. I'm going to raise that to A sharp. So if you raise the A to A sharp, we make that a harmonic minor scale. So I would make sure we know that scale all the way up and all the way down, all the way up to high E or F sharp if your saxophone has a high F sharp key, and all the way down to low A sharp, and then back up to the low B. So, one of the driving things about this etude is the articulation, believe it or not. So we have this slur two articulation, and this is going to be one of the things that I think is going to take you the longest to learn. So with the slur two articulation at a fast tempo like this, you're going to really want to make sure that the second note of your slur is long. All right? So don't clip the slur, don't shorten it in any way. There needs to be as little space as possible when you're articulating between the two slurs. Da, da, da. All right? So very, very little space. There's no clipping or anything like that. Your tongue should be, you should be using a D syllable, da, 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 as light as possible. No T syllable or anything, da, da, da. That, if you do that, there's going to be too much space between the slurs, and you're going to end up doing this kind of weird, like almost a swing thing. And that's just not the style that we're going for here. So make sure that second note of your slurs is long. I can't stress that enough. Very, very little space between the slurs. Now when you have the staccatos right here, I would go ahead and clip off the last note of that slur when you have the staccatos that come after it, like here in measure 2. Okay, lots of side A sharps here, lots of fork F sharps. You're going to want to use bis a lot when you're playing A sharp, unless there's a B that comes after it, and a lot of the times it does. Like I said, you're going to be playing a lot of side A sharps. 1, 2, and the side B flat key down here. Lots of forks, also fork F sharps. Measure 3. We have to use a side right there because you got the B coming after it. Alrighty, so it's going to be a lot of sides. Sometimes you're going to be using bis, like here coming up in the next couple measures I'll show you. Make sure when you're having this this articulation that I just played here in measure 4 that you're really deliberate with your articulation. Don't make any, don't be ambiguous. Be very, very deliberate with your tongue. Maybe accent just slightly on the first notes of those slurs right there to get to give across the idea that, hey, I know this articulation. Right here in measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can come down to a bis right there on the A sharp after the high C sharp. almost a crescendo, because measure 9, you're a noticeably softer dynamic. So make sure that you're noticeably softer there in measure 9. Make sure good crescendo there into measure 11. Strong all the way through there, okay? So come down in dynamic there at the mezzo forte, come there in measure 9 when you're starting after the rest. Come up, then come back down like I did. Then right here, starting in the downbeat of the 4th line, this is where you're going to start your crescendo. The C major arpeggio that you're outlining. And again, right here, measure 17, you're going to start this softly. Bis right here on the A sharp. You have to be really fast from going from the high E down to the low D, okay? I don't recommend using a front E there. I would just make sure to practice it repetitiously to get that high E down to the low D without putting any space between. And then crescendo through that measure that starts on the low D into the high D up there. Start and then go all crescendo all the way through into the E sharp, and that starts the next line, and then immediately on the A sharp that comes right after it is very, very soft. Almost, it says piano. I would almost do a pianissimo. And then going up to the D right there, I wouldn't use a long D like a D with the octave key right there. I would use a short palm key D, and that would be just the E flat key by itself, okay? To play those notes, I would keep everything on the fundamental, no octave key right there. And then starting right here is where I would start my crescendo. Again, that is the 2nd palm key there alone for the the middle D. That's what we call side D sometimes. And then we have this Fairling Fair right here. We have this diminished arpeggio that are outlining on the G sharp, G sharp, B, G sharp, E sharp, and D natural. Then right here, don't speed this measure up. It's gonna be there's a tendency to speed it up, but just make sure it stays, right there in time. This is where I would breathe. So I would do this etude in, 2 lines, 1 breath. First 2 lines, 1 breath. Next 2 lines, 1 breath. It's really, really difficult, but it's possible to play the last half of the etude, the final 16 bars in 1 breath. But it's really difficult. I would separate it into 2 lines and 2 lines again. But I wouldn't do this like big, long, dramatic ritardando going into the last 2 lines. I would just play it through, take your breath, and go. I would just take the breath and keep going. No ritardando. And then these measures where you have the long, articulated lines here, I don't think you have to play really, really short. You don't have to go da 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 da. I mean, just play it with a good soft, da 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 with a D syllable. The speed will take care of the staccato. excuse me. It doesn't have to be. I just don't think that sounds good. Then make sure you push here through to the low B. Ba ba. Don't shy away. Even crescendo down into it's a fortissimo, so you should be crescendoing down into the low D, down to the low B. And you can take a little bit of a pause there between the last two notes. Ba ba. There, if you see, there's staccato there. Staccato means separated. Ba ba. All right. Not a whole lot to this etude. Just make sure the biggest thing is seeing who can make that slur to articulation pattern the smoothest, and just make sure it sounds effortless. Okay. Good luck. Get to practicing on this, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.